Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Caligoan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date, except in the month of April, which is this month we are recording this, where we talk about movies after the first date. So simple rules on this podcast, a married couple, movies prior to 2003, but in the month of April, we break that rule and we show each other, not the married couple rule. We break...
Unless there's something you haven't told me.
We open the floodgates to movies post 2003, and that's what we're in the middle of right now. So this time I was made to watch The Devil Wears Prada.
Yep, it's the movie that tries to convince us that Anne Hathaway is ever, under any circumstances, frumpy.
Yeah.
That's a hard sell, folks.
Yeah.
There really is. Like, they put her in some baggy clothes and make her hair a little frizzy. And she does wear some unfortunate shoes. I was watching this time and thinking I had those shoes about that time, but I knew not to wear them with a skirt. But that's really her worst fashion sin. But anyway, it's The Devil Wears Prada. It's the 2006 movie based on the 2000-something, two-ish book by Lauren Weisberger, which was in turn based on her experience as an assistant at Vogue, assistant to Anna Winter, I don't know. Anna, the lady with the blunt bob and the bangs, who's always wearing sunglasses, and editor-in-chief of Vogue. And apparently, if the book is true, is unpleasant to work for. The movie takes some liberties with the book, as most do. I think this is more than was really warranted. The movie Andy is, well, first of all, she's from the Midwest, and she went to Northwestern, which I think is code for she's a naive good girl, high achiever, but sweet and innocent. And she wants to be a journalist, and she views this job as Miranda's assistant as a way to get ahead in her career. And her boyfriend is a chef. Meanwhile, in the book, Andy is a little bit aimless, doesn't really have a goal for what she wants to do. She just graduated from Brown, so, Ivy League, East Coast. That's different. And as I recall, she spent some time in India after graduation and got some kind of parasite, and she's very thin from all the weight loss that you get with parasites, apparently. And that's why she gets the job, is that she's so thin. They're like, oh, well, clearly she must be a fashion person. And her boyfriend in the book is named Alex, and he's like a saint. He teaches elementary school, and he takes care of his brother and his single mom, and he's like perfect. So right off the bat, there's some of the characters are the same name, but different. And some characters are so different that the name has changed. Also, in the book, Lily is her best friend. Lily's also in the movie, but Lily has a much more detailed arc in the book, and kind of the climax that makes Andy realize I can't continue with this life path that I'm on is Lily is becoming progressively more of an alcoholic and has a DUI and is in a coma. Meanwhile, Andy is in France with Miranda, and Miranda's response is like, oh, well, sucks to be her. Get back to work. And Andy's like, okay, no, I can't do this. I quit. I'm going home. In the movie, Lily is just there as like a voice of caution, but that's it. She doesn't have a lot of arc of her own. So those are kind of the differences. In case now you don't have to read the book because I've told you about it. Dave, what did you know about this movie going into it? Anything?
No, pretty much nothing. I mean, like I knew, horrible boss.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah. Well, and for Horrible Boss, movie Miranda has a lot more nuance to her. Book Miranda is pretty terrible. I was reading some descriptions before this. There's a whole passage about how she changed her name, and she came from a poor working class background and kind of cut her ties with her family because she wanted to pretend that she was, kind of a little bit Martha Stewart-ish, actually.
Yeah.
Martha is famously comes from an ethnic Polish family and very modest means, and now I don't think she lies about it, but she certainly, wants it to look like she's always had money.
Yeah.
So that's the vibe I was getting from this book, Miranda. Movie Miranda has this whole sort of subplot with her ex-husband her current husband, I don't know what number he is, who seems emasculated by the fact that she is working all the time and is successful at work and blah, blah. And she seems to care about his feelings about her, but I also can't imagine that she's a very loving wife or mother. So I don't know. And also it doesn't hurt that she's played by Meryl Streep, who makes everything better. I mean, you could have same script, same everything, and is played by a lesser actress, and you would not care about Miranda as much as you do. I like to see Meryl Streep and other, high caliber actors doing roles that seem like they'd be fun in their later years. You kind of imagine her thinking, well, I've been nominated for an Oscar how many times? I can just have fun now. So, there's this and Julie and Julia and Mamma Mia and I forget what else, but a whole lot of movies that are just, maybe challenging, but definitely fun.
Mm-hmm.
No, nothing about having to choose which one of your children to give to the Nazis. This is just which belt do you put on the model? Like far less consequential.
Yeah.
She's going to give me a big speech about how it is consequential, but less than your children. Well, let's see. So let's get into this. So if you know nothing about the book or the movie, Andy is a recent college graduate, ends up in this job as Miranda's assistant. And in the movie, I've told you the differences between the book and the movie. I'm not going to talk about the book anymore. In the movie, she's told, you work a year here, you can get a job at any magazine you want. I don't think that's actually true. I feel like the New Yorker, which is one that she name checks, is not going to be, oh, you spent a year getting coffee for a tyrant. Okay, you can write about whatever you want for us. Like, that's not really how it, but okay, sure, fine.
Well, it seemed like the thing was more the contacts you would make versus they would just look at your resume and see you had been there.
Well,
and the fact that she would give you presumably a recommendation.
I suppose. But I don't know. I feel like all that proves is that you can put your head down and gut it out, and not necessarily that you're any good at what you did, but okay.
Maybe, but she's so notorious in the industry, even beyond fashion, I imagine, that the fact that you were able to live up to her expectations for a year and she's giving you a recommendation probably does a lot for your career. Well,
so see, you are the person who should be watching this movie, not me, because I'm going to pick some of these things.
I mean, I find it believable on some level that being the assistant to a high-powered editor like that would get you a foot in the door in many places in the New York publishing industry. Well, I don't find that I have to suspend very, very much disbelief to believe that the plan that she has can result in the goal that she has.
Well, as we may have mentioned at various times, I went to school for journalism and have, a tiny bit of exposure to this world that Andy's in. And actually, we have the same alma mater. She went to Northwestern University, as did I. She went to their journalism school, one presumes, as did I. She wrote for the Daily Northwestern, as did I. And she's writing about janitor strikes and, things that seem very like lefty, progressive, social justice-y. And if she wants to write about that stuff, you can't really tell because she just moves to New York City and is like, okay, time for me to find a job, which is not how your job search should work. Everybody, when you're graduating school, your school has a career office. Go find them. They will help you find a job.
Yeah, use that stuff.
I say that now. I graduated in 1999 when the economy was great, so I could be completely talking out of my ass in a different economy, but in general, I do not think there is much of a reason why you should have to move to a city and then find a job and just be like, I will take anything. If you have good credentials, you should have better luck.
Well, I mean,
but anyway,
think about your path, right? You came out of that same school and went to some nowhere paper. She clearly wanted more than that.
But I didn't go to a nowhere paper.
What do you mean?
I went to a large newspaper for a recent grad.
Well, like the third or fourth largest newspaper in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that just seems like that seems somehow
listen, you don't
below
even.
you.
There are very small newspapers out there that I could have got. That's why I came. That's why I came to North Carolina instead of in Illinois, because in Illinois, like, I didn't want to live. I knew I wasn't ready for a major paper in the Midwest, and I didn't want to live in the small towns where the other papers were. So I was like, okay, new part of the country. Anyway, yeah, no, I did better than you think I did.
I'm not saying you did bad. Like,
I didn't.
It just seems like,
anyway,
it seems like she wanted something more than that. Well, more than they may have been able to offer. So she just moved to the place she could get it.
Well, I maintain that her job search was flawed from the start.
Yes, but I don't disagree with that.
Anyway, so she ends up with this job as Miranda's assistant. She is living with her boyfriend, who is some sort of kitchen person.
Like a line cook or something.
Yeah, I mean, but like at good places,
in a decent restaurant.
He's not at Waffle House. He's at like he's on the path where he wants to be, like, you're going to see him on Top Chef. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting deviation from the book, because, like I said, the boyfriend in the book is kind of a saint, and this one is less so. So it's interesting, his perspective on her career, which we'll get to in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Andy has this arc that is, rather predictable, I guess. She's earnest and she tries hard and she expects people to be nice to her because she's nice back. And then she's told, no, you're not really trying. You don't appreciate this job. A lot of people would kill for this job. And then we have a makeover scene. And then, boom, apparently that's all she needed. And after that, she's great. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's very weird. It feels very unearned.
Well, and I don't really understand what the movie's trying to say. If you look the part, then magically everything else will work out. Because I've been trying that my entire life, and it doesn't actually work.
I wonder if more it's trying to say, like, you have to put your whole self into something. You can't just be... She initially approaches this job as something to do for a year, but doesn't take it seriously and isn't in the world and is just trying to exist as an outsider and failing at doing the job well, and realizes that she needs to actually buy in and care about what she's doing, not just the nuts and bolts of it, but like the actual industry she's working in.
And
at that point, she becomes better at the whole thing.
That's possible.
Although I don't know how a fashion makeover makes her able to better, like, keep up with appointments and all the other nuts and bolts stuff, but somehow magically it does.
Right before this makeover, it's presented that Miranda was in Miami and needed to get home to New York, and there was basically a hurricane and she couldn't get a flight. And she was like, Andrea, find me a flight. This is your job. And Andy couldn't do it. And Miranda makes her feel like a failure, and Andy's feeling really bad. Like, that's okay.
Yeah,
I don't, and I think we're meant to think that, yes, it's ridiculous that Miranda has this expectation. But so, yeah, just because she's wearing the Chanel boots, does that mean she would have been able to find a flight?
Right. All of a sudden,
really get that.
She can, even though she puts tremendous effort into it, all of a sudden she could have done it. Right.
Yeah. So, like,
it doesn't make any sense.
Unreasonable expectations are still unreasonable expectations, even if you are, drinking the Kool-Aid, or to use the parlance of a movie that we saw recently. If you are all in on the Nazis and you're not trying to be Nazi by day, swing kid by night, like, unreasonable is still unreasonable. But so anyway, she has the makeover. I do enjoy the scene where they show she's in various outfits, and it's all one path, like onto the subway, out of the subway.
It's a nice editing.
And they just sort of cut things together every time she goes behind a pole or something.
Something passes in the foreground, and then she comes out the other side in a different outfit.
Different outfits, yeah. The conceit here is, I guess, that if you work at a fashion magazine, you get all the stuff for free.
Or you get samples, you get access to it because they're given, like, her first outfit comes from their, racks or whatever of just that season's new clothes or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know how that actually I'm sure that sounds good. I feel like it's not actually that way in real life, and people end up with a really big credit card bill because they had to get the latest of everything. But
right.
And then, she's doing well at work, but because this is an entry level job, it's late hours and unpredictable workloads, and all of a sudden you have to stay for this or for that or whatever. She has to miss her boyfriend's birthday because last minute she's told you have to come to this benefit and dress up and look fancy and help your boss and blah blah.
Yeah.
And then, more things like this happen. Meanwhile, she's come into the orbit of this other publishing guy, played by Simon Baker, who up to this I thought was kind of dreamy. And after this, I was like, ew, no, he's gross. Because he doesn't turn out to be a great guy. He's sweet talking her and, basically flirting with her the entire time from the jump. And, she needs his help to do one of Miranda's impossible tasks. And so he's like, okay, now you owe me a favor. And he's, getting more and more and more. There's her co-assistant, sort of her boss, sort of her not, is played by Emily Blunt. And I think this was her first big movie. So it's great to see her way back. The Emily character is supposed to be able to go to Paris with Miranda for the fashion shows, and like she knows this, and she's been looking forward to the whole time. She's
earned her place as she's the she's the direct number 2.
Yeah.
Andy's number 3, and the number 2 gets to go to Paris, yada yada yada.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, the only thing that they really show is Emily gets a cold and doesn't remember somebody's name at a time when Miranda needs it. That's all we really see. But that meanwhile, Andy is, kicking ass and taking names, and Emily is getting cold and forgetting names.
I think it's just the sum total. Yeah. I mean, that was what I took away. It's just, getting the Harry Potter book, getting, being able to, because Emily makes a point of saying, you have to know everybody on this list. I've been studying this for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. You have 3 hours to learn these people. And in the clutch, Andy knows someone's name that Emily doesn't. But on top of that, she's just been knocking it out. There are several things where Miranda says, do X, Y, Z. And she's like, done.
Oh, did that.
It's waiting. It's already waiting for you. So I think it's supposed to be a progression, whether it comes off that way or not. It did for me.
Yeah.
But, that was sort of just like the last thing. Yeah. Like, this is the one thing that finally did it.
I think it's clear that Andy is doing a good job. It seems a little capricious of Miranda to decide that Emily is not doing a good job, but that's what she does decide. And she tells Andy, I need the best with me in Paris. That's not Emily. That's you. Hey, guess what? You have to tell Emily that you're taking her place in Paris. And Andy is ready to do that, but then Emily's hit by a car.
Yeah, just like the weirdest out of left field kind of thing. Like,
well, to me, then it's like, oh, well, that's too bad. I guess I'll go with you instead of you, and I'll bring you back some croissants. And like what? But croissant. But for whatever reason, Andy tells her anyway, and Emily is furious.
Yeah,
and then all
weird.
of her friends are like, everyone's treating her as if this was a backstabbing thing, when it does not seem to me that she did backstab anybody. I think given the fact of Emily's got a broken leg, this is unfortunate circumstances that work out really well for Andy.
Right. It kind of undermines, I think the movie undermines its own themes there, because she's just working really hard at her job, trying to do it well. And she does that. And the side effect is that the other woman, who is maybe on some level taking it for granted, loses out to Andy. Like, I didn't even sniff backstabbing until somebody brings it up as like a plot point.
Well,
like, no.
I do think it is an example of Miranda just being kind of a crappy boss, saying, hey, you need to tell Emily, because
of course
I don't know if I would have the nerve. Certainly I would not have had the nerve at 22 or whatever Andy is to say, you need to tell her. But that's really inappropriate to have one employee tell another, guess what?
Oh,
you
sure.
don't get this thing. But
that's offense number 3247.
Right.
Of inappropriate on her for Miranda.
Right. So Andy goes to Paris. Meanwhile, she's kind of sort of in the middle of breaking up with boyfriend. I mean, she says something about let's take a break, but then she refers to it as we split up. So I don't know. Because he's becoming very frustrated with he says we don't have anything in common anymore. You don't have integrity.
That she changed for the job and lost her integrity. And
yeah. So she's in Paris, also again kicking butt. Here comes Christian Thompson, Simon Baker, who's flirting with her some more, and is like, "Oh, the boyfriend isn't around anymore. Oh, I'm so sad." And she rightly calls him on his shit. She's like, "Oh, please, you're so full of shit. Like you're not sad." He's like, "Nope, not at all." They go to dinner. They have a slightly troubling interlude under a tree. Where she says, I can't, I barely know you. I've drunk too much wine. It hasn't been that long since I split from my boyfriend. I'm out of excuses. And he's like, oh, thank God. And they sleep together. And I'm like, no, those are all good excuses. The fact that she's named several of them, like that adds up to a totality. I
don't know. Anyway. To me, it was a baby, it's cold outside situation. She was protesting because she felt she had to. No, don't stop. Kind of thing. Like it didn't to me. Like I understand what you're saying, but I feel like the way the scene was written and played, it was written to be.
It's meant to be.
Baby, it's cold outside. Yeah. Like until you're gonna you have to say these things till you run out of excuses. Then we can both do what we know we're gonna do anyway.
It's meant to be cute and playful, but
I understand why it could be perceived as troubling. I just think that perception is read into it, not
possibly
from it.
Possibly. Well, it could be just me, but anyway, so they sleep together. She finds out that the corporate overloads of the magazine, overloads? Does that say overloads?
Yes.
Overlords of the magazine are planning to replace Miranda with the editor of French Runway. I keep wanting to say Vogue because it's clearly a corollary for Vogue, but it's not. It's Runway. And Andy knows that Miranda will be devastated if this happens, so she's trying to warn Miranda. Can't get through to her. Miranda's like, stop, don't talk to me, I'm working, blah, 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 blah. Turns out that Miranda has engineered this swappity-doo. Another one of her employees, Nigel, who's played by Stanley Tucci, who's always delightful, has been offered this job as president, I think, of a brand that's expanding to go from clothes to also, shoes and bags and fragrances and blah, 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 blah. Miranda does a switcheroo where she keeps her job and the French editor gets this job and Nigel is just out in the cold. And Nigel only learns this at
he learns it in real time
in public.
Like he doesn't know until the moment that she says it.
And he has to, he's all excited and you can see just like him die inside a little bit.
Yeah, basically she outsmarts everybody and, and in the end there's a scene where she's saying to Andy, like, you didn't think I already knew all this?
Right.
Like I've known for months.
Right.
I know when people are maneuvering on me and I outmaneuvered them.
Yes. And then Andy says, I couldn't do that. How did you do that to Nigel? And Miranda says, oh, you already did. You did it to Emily. And that
which she didn't. Which like there's no circumstances under which she did in the movie that's presented to us.
No,
maybe in the book, I don't know.
I don't think
but
so.
But not in the movie that's presented to us.
Yeah, I don't understand that. So that is kind of Andy's, okay, this is it. I'm done. And she gets out of the car and walks away and throws her phone in the fountain and end of working for Miranda. Then at the end, we see she's got an interview at an actual newspaper, one that's much more in the progressive line that she should have been doing all along. There's a scene with Nate that a lot of people, I think, interpret as she's going to give up everything that she wants and go to be with him because he says he got a job at a restaurant up in Boston, which apparently is like advancing on his career path. And they say something about, she says, I'll miss those late night grilled cheeses. And he says, they have cheese in Boston. We'll work something out. I've read people saying, this is terrible. She's giving up what she wants, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't see that at all. I think that's just, they realize that they do have things in common still. And they're not giving up on each other.
Yeah, wasn't the interview after the
True. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I didn't read that into it because I felt like, as I recall, the interview at the
True.
paper was after,
That's
and
true.
the door closes and it's New York, whatever.
Yeah,
It's
true.
not Boston,
Yeah.
where he's going.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, people on the internet / BuzzFeed listicles are get angry about this, and I'm like, I don't think that's they're not that far away.
I think that's totally a misreading of that. And yeah, like anybody who knows anything about geography knows that Boston and New York are not that far apart.
No.
So much so that they couldn't see each other on the weekends or whatever.
Yeah, I don't quite get that. But
yeah, no,
anyway.
that just feels like a misreading of the whole situation.
Yeah,
but I'm no fan of this, like longtime fan of this movie. I've seen it once at this point.
So, and then, Andy's walking home from her interview. She's pretty much been told that she has the job. And she also is told that Miranda gave her what for Miranda is probably a glowing reference. It's something along the lines of all my assistants, she was the biggest disappointment of all, and you should hire her, which is probably the best you're going to get from Miranda. And she walks home and she's walking past the building where the magazine is, sees Miranda outside, gives her kind of a nod, and Miranda, being Miranda, does not give her a nod back, but gets in the car and just looks thoughtful for a minute, and then bitches out her driver like, go, which is...
Well, she doesn't look thoughtful for a minute.
Well...
She smiles.
Yeah.
And there's only ever been one smile before that.
Oh, that's fair. Oh.
That was because I was sitting there thinking,
interesting.
She's going to nod. She's going to nod twice. And then she smiles. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't put that together.
Maybe I'm making that up, but she smiles. And like they make a big point earlier of saying, when she's evaluating something, one nod is good, two nods is great. And there's only ever been one smile in 1984 or whatever.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that was my read.
I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
Maybe I'm reading into it. But.
I don't know. I like that take though. So, but anyway, so we're left with they couldn't work together. They're very different, but they appreciate it. They appreciate each other. Well, and the end.
I think on some point, on some level, the speech that Miranda gives Andy in the car is her saying, "We're alike." Mm-hmm. You remind me of me at your age. Mm-hmm. And then when she walks away, that's the disappointment, but also that's the path that Miranda could have taken. Miranda could have gone for a path of quote unquote integrity and chose the path that she's on because everyone wants to be me. Everyone wants to. The thing she says right before she gets out of the car is that everyone wants to have the life that she has. Yeah, and nope. It's clear on the way the character's presented throughout the movie. It's clear that on some level she doesn't even want the life she has. Miranda doesn't, because it means less time with her kids. It means that she can't make a relationship work with a man, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all of the side effects that she has to go through to live the life that she's living. The version of her that could have gotten out of the car, air quotes, wouldn't be dealing with that, would have maybe a happier life outside of work, but wouldn't be in the position that she's in.
There is absolutely some cognitive dissonance going on. I think with a lot of these folks, and with Andy to a degree at various points, but yeah, what you want out of life versus what you have versus what you do to get it. And I'm quite sure that, Miranda at age 22 is looking at Miranda at age 50, whatever, and a little not entirely pleased.
Oh, sure.
But which of us at 22 likes where we are as adults? I don't know. So we talked about Andy and Emily, and was that actually backstabbing, which is what a lot of people contend. I don't. I think that's a crappy thing that Miranda did, but sometimes other people get a raw deal and you are there to take advantage of it, and I don't know if that's necessarily bad.
Yeah, I don't see it. The movie, what's presented to me in the movie from my perspective and my interpretation does not support that conclusion. I don't see any intent in Andy's actions other than the intent that comes through in her deciding to take an interest in fashion and be more fashionable and go more into the industry that she's working in, and therefore excelling at her job. but I don't see any intent to become the number one assistant.
No, I don't
Like,
think I don't think she's mounting a coup
Yeah.
or anything. She's
not looking for it.
She's on a hot streak and
Right.
she benefits, but that's
In fact, like when the shift happens, she's as surprised as anyone that the change is even happening.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting though. She says to Emily, "You know how she is. I didn't have a choice." And I think
Right.
she says that a couple times. I didn't have a
Oh, yeah.
choice. And the people always call her on it. Like, yes, you did have a choice. Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, yes, but
You always, yeah. I mean, I do think that's one of the themes of the movie, that, you know, you do, like, she is complicit to that degree, that she did have a choice. But the choice that she made in this wasn't to backstab somebody or usurp somebody. It was just to be good at her job. And so, yeah, like you can say in the end, like, oh, and she does several times, you know how Miranda is, I didn't have a choice. That's a cop out when she says it to her boyfriend, when she says it there, whatever. Like, she did have a choice. You could just say no. Like,
Well,
this is like,
I think though that is a lot to expect of a 22-year-old who, up until maybe not that long ago, felt like her employment was kind of tenuous.
Sure.
Like when there's this benefit, which I think is meant to be the Met Gala, that the magazine puts on, and Emily's supposed to go. Andy is not meant to go. She's like, okay, great, I'm going to go home early because it's Nate's birthday, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, at the last minute, you have to go. And it would be great if we could say to our bosses if everybody could say to their boss in that position, listen, I have plans.
yeah.
I was told I was not needed. I have plans. I'm sorry. You're going to have to figure something else out. I don't know many people who could do that. I don't know if I could at my age. And I think that's part of that is just Miranda being Miranda. Some bosses would present it as, listen, I know it's last minute. You probably have plans. Can you do this, please? Miranda presents it as, okay, you're doing this.
But she presents it like that. But also, I think that Miranda would tell you that this is what you agreed to when you signed up for this.
Right.
Like, you agreed to be like 24/7.
Right. When it really wasn't. But
sure.
Yeah. And I've had that come up in jobs, and you're feeling like, wait a minute. Did I actually agree to that? And then you tie yourself up in knots, and it's really unfair to do to anybody.
Sure.
But it takes a lot of backbone to say, no, I can't do that, and if you want to fire me for this, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I certainly couldn't have done that at 22. I don't know if I could do it now. So to say like, oh no, you did have a choice. You always have a choice. Well, like, yes, technically.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's often the point that people are making when they say that is like, yeah, it was a hard choice, but you had a choice. Like, it's almost never the case that the excuse "I didn't have a choice" is ever actually valid. What you mean is it was much easier for you to make one choice over another, much more financially easy, much more, whatever. Like pick a thing, socially easy. Yeah, but there's always a choice, and that's the thing. Like the ethical, quote unquote ethical choice, the moral choice, the choice of integrity is always going to be harder. Like, it's always easier to take the low road. It's easier to cheat than to work hard. It's easier to backstab than to excel at your job. Though obviously, we both agree that she is not backstabbing. She's just doing well at her job. No.
Well, then would the right thing be to say, oh no, Emily can still go. We'll just figure out a way. We'll find a really designery crutch that she can wear.
Well, that's the thing. The movie kneecaps itself there. It takes all of the pressure of on the character, the integrity question, away from her. Because she has a freshly broken leg. Like, she's in the hospital up to the moment that they leave.
Yeah.
Maybe surgery, who knows? They don't go into detail. By having Emily break her leg, they mute the ethical question. They dilute that ethical question, because if she's 100% healthy and doesn't have a broken leg, then it is a hard choice that Andy has to make. And you know how she is, I didn't have a choice, rings a lot truer than here, where other than like the few hours between her Andy finding out she was going to do it and Emily getting a broken leg, that's the full extent of the actual drama
Right.
surrounding the thing. Then Emily has a broken leg and there's no way she could go anyhow.
Yeah.
So it's a really odd choice. I feel like they're building an emotional like narrative for the Andy character, and then they just kneecap it right there. They're like, well, this decision, what, like maybe they're worried it would make her look like the bad guy if, to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's they don't feel like they can do enough to redeem her in the end, or if she's willing to make this choice and take this away from Emily, why is the thing in the car the thing that makes her walk away? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't really. I feel like you have to just sort of accept that everybody thinks this was backstabbing. So okay, I guess it was, but
it's just really weird. It's like just a really weird choice, like in the middle of that arc to do the leg break, and you cut because it takes away, it deflates that choice, because it doesn't matter. She can't say no now. Andy can't say no
right
now because Emily can't go physically.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the actual backstabbing, which it absolutely is, and the Nigel character is just kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm just staying here now.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think, and he's Stanley Tucci, so he's in his 40s or 50s there. That is when you do say, okay, no, I'm finding something else. I don't know what something else is for him, but
yeah. But also, I think in a certain way that the Nigel character is like he's like the Ghost of Christmas Past or something. Like, if you stay on this path, this is where you would end up.
Yeah.
He's like,
he's heartbreaking.
He is an example of what it's like to stay in her orbit, that you're going to do great things. And, he has a position in the fashion world, which much like it's pointed out for Andy's position, millions of people would kill to be in his position, but it comes at the cost of being under Miranda's thumb and, not being able to. He even says, like in Celebration after, like he can choose his own things. He can make his own decisions.
Oh God. He says, for the first time in 18 years, I'm going to call the shots on my own life, and I'm going to come to Paris and actually see Paris.
Yeah.
Which, as someone who, like, I did just enough of work travel where I would go various places, but you see the airport in your hotel and a meeting room, and then you leave and you don't see any of this stuff. And I imagine it's the same, even if it's Fashion Week in Paris. And he's so close to, like, I can have a full, rich life, and then it's all snatched away. And I just, ugh.
Yeah. And of course, like, Stanley Tucci is great in everything that he's in.
Everything
and
better.
Just, yeah.
I really do. In the changes between the book and the movie, I really do think that adding the Nigel character was a strength. In the book, there is a character named Nigel. I don't want to say it's not this same character. They just have the same name.
Yeah.
He works at the magazine, and he screeches all the time. Like, if I recall, his dialogue is written in all caps.
Nice.
All the time. He's kind of like the book version of, I'm imagining like Billy Eichner, who just runs up to people on the street and is like, what do you think of chinchilla fur?
Yeah.
Like,
do you care about John Oliver?
Blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my God, tone it down. And so in the book, he's just there for comic relief.
Yeah.
And here, obviously, he's a fully fledged person.
Yeah. He's he's her one sort of ally. Like, you get the impression that she's not the first one he's done this for,
right,
of Miranda's assistants, that he's takes them under his wing a little bit and helps them out. He even gives there's some really early stuff where they're in like a lunch line and he's like, oh, they moved up the meeting, and he's throwing away her food. Like, what is it? She doesn't even know what that means.
And she decodes everything, and he's like, okay, this means blah, 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 blah. You got to go now.
Yeah.
Or Miranda doesn't bother learning people's names. Yeah. And she's in her office and she calls out, Emily. Emily's not there. And Nigel is like, she means you.
Yeah.
Like, just trust me. I've been here. I know, and you imagine that for a while she was probably calling Andy's replacement Andrea, and someone had to say, oh, she means you.
Yeah. And whoever, however long it took Emily to get her to know her name.
Just until recently, Emily was Serena.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. There's a point where Andy introduces herself to somebody and they say, oh, you're the new Emily.
Yeah.
And so like other people are doing this, not just Miranda. And I kind of think, and again, I'm 45, not 22. I would be like, oh no, she's the old me. Like you gotta come up with a zinger for that. But it's this notion of people being replaceable, which actually, if you care to read a whole lot into it, fits into fashion very well.
Oh yeah.
Like, we were all wearing skinny jeans, and then one day, boom, oh no, bootcut jeans are what we're wearing. Just, someone decided.
Yeah.
Someone on Madison Avenue decided that we were going to do bootcut jeans, and like, oh, okay, it's,
Oh yeah. And the models are always being replaced with the younger, newer, model. Literally.
Except in Miranda's case, she is not being replaced with somebody.
Well, I think at that level you're not, but
right.
But they do try to replace her with the younger, newer model, but she outsmarts it.
She fights back. Yeah. I think Miranda has an interesting speech. So at one point, she's putting together, the editors are in her office presenting the outfits that they're going to have on models in pages of an issue, some months hence. And Miranda doesn't like this, doesn't like that, blah, blah, blah. And she's putting something together and she's like, okay, what are the choices for the belts? And one of the editors is like, here, they're so different. Well, they're very similar. They're both of like a teal leather, and one has a silver buckle and one has and Andy's in the corner cracking up like they're exactly the same. It's like anytime you laugh when you're not supposed to. Did you have something to say? And she's like an idiot. She doesn't say, oh no, I'm sorry, I was just thinking of something that happened the other day. She says, I'm sorry, I'm still learning about the stuff. I didn't know, and so Miranda launched into a great speech. That is, you think you're above all this. This is art. This is, this is the sweater that you're wearing started from this designer and went on down and, and the people in this room selected this sweater for you from a pile of stuff. And, and I don't know if I really feel like all fashion is necessarily art, but definitely because she's Meryl Streep, I would listen to that and I felt like a bug on a pin.
Yeah, she makes you believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, yeah.
And Andy immediately runs away.
Yeah.
And I think that's when she puts on the Jimmy Choos and takes off the big old clodhoppers. Like,
yeah.
Those shoes were really bad. Like I said, I think that those are the shoes that I wore on our honeymoon to walk around Dublin. But yes, I wore them with jeans.
Yeah.
And because they were comfortable for walking, I knew they were not attractive, and I never would have worn them with a skirt. Like, come on. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not what you would call a fashion person. I like clothes. I don't necessarily like fashion. I think there's a difference. I like the idea of putting different colors and fabrics and textures together to form an outfit that works. But fashion as like an art form, I'm not made for those clothes. My body, my age, my lifestyle, my pocketbook, anything. So it just feels I can't relate to it. So I don't know. Fashion as fashion is not really in my wheelhouse, but the whole idea about fashion as a consumer market is kind of interesting. Yeah,
that there's somebody behind it, pulling the strings, making all these decisions. When you think you went in, I mean, the point of that speech is you think you went into this, C-tier store and picked this out of the bargain bin or whatever, and that but the reality is that's 3 seasons ago that was the thing that we picked out and made fashionable.
We were doing it in silk ball gowns, and now it's
trickled down
your
to
sweater. Oftentimes I buy something, a pair of shoes or a bag or whatever at, say Target or Old Navy. And then later I realize, oh my God, it's a knockoff of blah, 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 some brand, or more likely it's a knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff. And I'm kind of mortified. Like, I didn't intend to be copying this designer thing. I just thought that the Old Navy version was cute and it was on sale. And that's, and so like I'm the opposite. Like, I don't want to admit that I was affected by these fancy choices, but sometimes you just need shoes or a sweater or whatever. I had something. Oh, yes. Okay. So speaking of, I'm not physically the body that they want to be dressing.
Right.
The sizeism in this movie is not great. I would say apt for the subject matter,
Sure.
but there's a reference to the models keep getting smaller. Nigel says something about zero is the new 2 and 2 is the new 4. And Andy says, well, I'm a 6. And he says, which is the new 14.
Yeah.
Which and you're looking at Anne Hathaway and you're like, no.
Right.
She's stunning. What, and then at some point, at the end of the movie, she tells Nigel she is now a 4. And it's like, oh, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And,
yeah. It is a little weird because, I mean, they're in an industry where that sort of stuff is valued, to the point where it's just, it's not forgivable, but it's like, well, yeah, of course.
It's very, I think
that
it's very apt, certainly in 2006. I think these days, fashion, the designers and the magazines give lip service to the idea of bigger bodies being acceptable. I don't think they actually believe it.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that I do think is interesting, every so often you see interviews with kind of like the behind the scenes staff of magazines. Grace Coddington is the name that comes to mind. She was some fashion director, I think at Vogue or somewhere. And they're these very creative people who are well respected and everything, but you look at them and they don't look like what you imagine fashion people to be. Like Grace Coddington is not what she was. I think she's dead. I remember her as not being what you call especially thin, had this kind of stark white skin and this like orangey hair, clearly dyed. I mean, to be striking, but not what you call classically beautiful. Like you would not, she didn't look like a model.
Yeah.
And she was very, like she wore striking clothes and a little bit like, do you know who Iris Apfel is?
No.
She's 100 years old. I think literally she's 100. And her thing is she has like closets full of jewelry and she's known for heavy accessories and she's got these big old anyway, she's distinctive style, not necessarily chic or anything. And anyway, a lot of the people who are behind the scenes at the various magazines, I think they've found their own style. So they have fashion, they get fashion in that regard, but they're not, like I said, they're not models.
Yeah.
They're just fashionable people. Do you see the distinction?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, we had this discussion just offhand, watching basketball a few weeks ago. The best players do not make good coaches. It's a mediocre journeyman player that makes an amazing coach. And the same thing could be true of the fashion industry. The size 0 runway model who looks fashionable every second of the day does not translate into being the one to pick the fashions. It's the, mid-tier, just, fashionable enough, but has a sense about her, but knows the game inside and out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're on the other side of the camera making the calls about what shot to use or whatever. Yeah.
Like Larry Bird does not make a good coach, but Doc Rivers did, who was like a journeyman player during his career, that kind of thing of like these are not the most fashionable people. They're not the thinnest people. They're not the prettiest people, but they have style and they know what style is. And they, you're not putting them on the runway, but you want them to be the one choosing what goes on the runway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that said, even though I don't necessarily think that there are a lot of people my size in the offices of Vogue or Runway in the movie, I think there always have been and always will be people who are not in the model mold. So there's that. We just would like them to go a little farther.
Yeah. And I mean, this whole thing is kind of on a weird place because it's depicted as being on the cutting edge of fashion, which is more of like an aspirational thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Miranda is framed as a character who is setting the style for the next, for the next 3 months or whatever, by the choices she makes in an issue and the things that she chooses to feature, which to me seems separate from, Target has size 12 mannequins now.
Yeah.
And, just those seem like completely different worlds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I mean when I say I like clothes, but not really fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like whenever if you're in the airport or whatever and you need a magazine and I end up looking through a Vogue or an Elle or Vanity Fair or some of these much higher end magazines, I'm just like, okay, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
Like these dresses are beautiful. That's a beautiful backdrop, beautiful models, whatever. I can't wear any of those. I don't have an event that I could wear those to, even if I had the figure for it or the budget for it. Like none of this is relevant to my life. I want to see, 50 sweaters and what's the affordable ones and what makes the expensive ones worth it and how to keep them in good shape and what's the best knit for wearing in North Carolina spring where it could be hot or I want the more practical stuff. And fashion as art is just, it's interesting, but only for a little bit of time.
Yeah. And I think it's that way in a lot of, like, when you go to when they have a car show and they show the prototypes that are never going to be on the road.
Yeah.
That's great. Now I just need to know what the new Tucson is going to look like, or the new Escape or whatever. Like, show me that. Like, this is cool. You got a one that runs on hydrogen and like unicorn farts.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, what is the next, 30 mile a gallon midsize SUV?
I need to know the practicalities. Otherwise, if it's
how many kids can I get in that
it's just fanciful, okay, you've lost me real quick. But so this is again why I'm not in fashion. I don't wear fashion clothes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about Nate as a character? Is he a bad boyfriend or is he just in a bad situation?
I don't think so. I mean, you don't see enough of their relationship, but he seems very, supportive. I mean, I think that they're a very particular type of couple. They live this sort of New York life, which is not relatable. Mm-hmm. They're depicted as the working man, but like New York's version of that.
Yeah.
Like this weird, poor New York middle class kind of thing where they have an apartment
and they have to take the subway to work.
She's right. She has to take the subway, but like at the end of the day, they unwind by cracking open a bottle of wine and having a grilled cheese with $8 gourmet cheese on it.
Well, I don't think the wine is necessarily a symbol of being high end, but
sure. I think it's a symbol of everything that's in their apartment, even the layout of their apartment, and everything that they do is reinforcing where they are in the social hierarchy of New York. And I think the message that you're supposed to get is that they're salt of the earth people in the way that, like, if this movie were set in North Carolina, they would be doing they'd be going to the factory and driving a truck
and living in a trailer somewhere.
And living in a trailer, right? All the signals they're sending you are that these are like, you're supposed to root for these people because they're underdogs. Yeah. Like you say, she takes public transportation.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the whole process of loss of integrity with her when she's getting driven around in a private car for the rest of the movie after that and all that stuff. But yeah, you don't see enough of their relationship. He seems supportive. He doesn't seem to do anything wrong other than, like, I can't even say that he resents her success, because her success is coming at the cost of basic things that she is not attending to in their relationship, like coming to his birthday party and other things.
Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know that I would call him supportive, because the first thing that he says is, "You got a job at a fashion magazine? What was it, a phone interview?" Like, he just, I don't know. He just seems to kind of neg the job from the beginning.
Maybe that just sort of seems like the relationship that they have, though.
Maybe.
And also because he's been with her and he knows the trajectory that she's been on with her, janitor strike stuff and all that. And he's, there's a little bit of good-natured picking there, because he expects her to be the next, whatever.
Well, as we discussed, sometimes picking works and sometimes it does not. And sometimes it's hard to tell if the picking is going to work. So I'll yeah. I think it's interesting, and this is why I noted that in the book, the boyfriend is much more of a saint. And here, so he's in a like, and he even says, "I make port wine reductions all day. I'm not out there saving lives." And frankly, someone who works in a restaurant keeps far worse hours than someone who works for a magazine. So I don't really, I mean, like, is he making those port wine reductions with integrity? Sure. But from what I understand, the restaurant industry has lots of backstabbing too. So I feel like he's also on the path for whatever moral downfall he sees her on. And if it's about availability, like that's probably a problem too. So I don't know. I don't know where he gets off being this moral high voice when I
think I kind of disagree. I think he's playing the game that he's supposed to play to get to the place that he wants to get to.
So is she.
She's not. That's the point. She went into a fashion magazine. Like, she is clearly been given a character arc that is, she's going to do great things in this world. She's going to become a reporter who exposes, unfair things. This would be like him becoming a private chef to rich people. Like, to me, that would be the equivalent for him of what she's done. Because he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's on the line in a New York restaurant, putting in his sweat and his time, and having that crap job, and he's going to work his way up. Mm-hmm. And I think his version of what she has done, like I said, would be shortcutting out of the path he's supposed to take and becoming a private chef, or working on a yacht, or, something like that.
But at the same time, if you view every step in your career path as you're learning something, I don't know if that is necessarily bad. I mean, it's the same kind of thing as, maybe someone has an ultimate goal to be, a public defender, but their first job out of school is working at a white shoe law firm. Like, I mean, yes, in the short term, it looks like they have turned their back on what they wanted to do. But in the long term, I mean, like, you don't know, did they, until you zoom out and look at their whole arc. Like, people are allowed to zig and zag to get what they want.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's the expectation that she had previously potentially put on herself, or he is putting on himself.
Well, but I think, so she said, I just have to do this for a year. And then she started to, she changed the way she dressed, and apparently that was the magical thing. And now she's doing well at this job. She doesn't say anything like, "Oh, I don't think I want to be a reporter. I think I want to do this instead." Like, as far as we know, she's still on the path to do it for a year and then do something else instead. So people are making a lot of assumptions about what she wants and what she's doing or not doing to get that without her saying anything about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's your actions speak louder. She didn't change the way she dressed. She took an interest in fashion, which is a fundamental change in her personality. She went from someone who didn't care about clothes or fashion to someone who did. That's different than if Nigel had just dressed her for the whole movie. Mm-hmm. That's what you're saying, that she changed the way she dressed.
Why do you make that distinction?
Because one is just playing the game, mm-hmm. and the other one is engaging, like on a different level.
What did you see the character do that makes you make that distinction?
Well, for me, it's when Nigel is impressed by the one outfit, and she says she put it together herself.
Yeah.
She put together an outfit that is good enough to impress a guy who's been in the fashion industry for 20 years. For months, 3 months, do we know how many months?
No.
Earlier, she was wearing, store-bought clothes from the Gap or Old Navy or whatever.
Well,
so she went from, and to me, that's the thing. Like, as you see the people that are close to you change those things, because to him, I feel like it would have been an obvious thing. Not that when it first started and he wasn't really upset about it, it was that she just changed the way she dressed. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point, it seems to shift because, like I said, she knows enough now to know how to put together a striking outfit that impresses a fashion
Well,
guy.
I've actually read a critique of that scene, and yeah, he's making this big deal like, oh, en crayon, blah blah blah. It's a black jacket and skirt. Like, this is not a groundbreaking outfit. So he says he's pleasantly surprised by the whole thing, blah blah blah. But in the grand scheme of risky fashion, this is not risky at all. Like, I mean,
Well,
yes,
why does it have to be risky? I mean, she's wearing like.
But I'm saying it's not. I don't. It does not seem surprising that she could put together a black jacket and a black skirt.
Well, the movie tells you that it is.
Well,
with the language that it's. I mean, so that's. I'm just saying, like, someone who wants to look at that and say that's not even that impressive. Like, maybe a fashion person looks at that and goes, oh, it's brilliant that she has that shade of black on top and this shade of black on the bottom, and these shoes are black but they're shiny. That brings out this, and then the accessories and this and this. Like it's if I look at a painting by an art school kid and a Van Gogh, I'm going to be like, oh no, they both look pretty cool. Like, they're both pretty good.
mm-hmm.
But someone who's actually knows about art is going to look at them and go, oh, Van Gogh did this. He did that. He used this here to emphasize that. And clearly this person has studied the greats. This student has studied the greats, but is merely mimicking them, not bringing in his own. So, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, we don't have any more information than he was impressed. Was he acting impressed? We can't say. He seemed genuinely impressed.
He might have been subliminally reacting to the fact that she's now a size 4, and
Maybe.
that's what makes it look better. Well, and the other,
but I just think it's the thing is, when people are close to you, when you're close to people, you can tell when they're just going through the motions on something, and when they have transitioned into actually, being like a devotee of that thing or whatever, or being like truly interested in it, or becoming a part of it. Like, I started, going to paying attention to soccer because we have a team in Charlotte now, versus, they show up with the shirt and they talk to you like they know stuff about soccer now. Like, what?
Well, I don't know.
You're a soccer fan.
I think my view on it is, don't assume that people have changed until they tell you that they have. I don't know. I just, everyone's getting pissy at Andy for, giving up on things that she used to want, and she hasn't given up on them yet. So I don't know. Maybe,
but at the same time, I think her whole arc and the reason that she walks away is she has. The version of her that's in the car right before she has her epiphany, whether she understands it or not, has given up on those things. Like, it's Miranda telling her, you remind me of me at your age, that makes her realize, oh crap, I am off the plan. And when she shows up for the interview, she's not dressed fashionably. Her hair is not immaculate. She's not accessorized.
I don't know. She's got makeup on. She's straightened her hair. She looks.
Her hair, it's almost identical to the hair that she has.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's almost identical.
It is absolutely not. It is much straighter and sleeker.
Okay, I'm just thinking about the bangs that she has and the way that the hair is.
It's better cut. It's sleeker. Like, those are, the clothes fit better. Like, she's not wearing, like, the Chanel newsboy cap or whatever that she's wearing at some point in the movie, but she's not her grandmother's skirt either.
Okay,
she's at a mid range.
Maybe you have some information.
Knowledge
that I don't.
Looking at her clothes.
Right. What I'm telling you is, to me, the Andy at the end of the movie reads the same as the Andy at the beginning of the movie. Maybe she is slightly more well put together, but if she is no comparison to the Andy that exists in the middle of the movie.
I'm not asking you your opinion on my hair ever again if you can't tell the difference.
I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't think there's any comparison between the Andy that gets out of the car and the Andy that comes out of that interview.
Sure. No, I'll give you that. I think you could say, you could respond to that as she's backed away from the full-on fashion, or she's dressing appropriately for the occasion. It would not be, like I said, you wouldn't have full glam makeup and, that crinoline skirt or whatever for a job interview. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, interpretation is whatever it is. Like, it's, we each have different interpretations of how different things in this movie went, but I think it's all,
I feel like based on your reaction to this, I can't start dressing better, but it's okay because I wasn't gonna anyway.
Well, that's good.
So,
well, you can't start dressing better if you go into the fashion industry.
Also, not gonna. So,
right. I don't care if you start dressing better tomorrow, whatever makes you happy. And I think Nate would have not cared if she started dressing better if it was what was making her happy.
Well, we don't know if it was or wasn't. I mean, I don't know. She seemed to like the Chanel boots.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Miranda also thought all of this stuff was making her happy. And again, I think that's the parallel that the movie's trying to draw for you, that she lost herself Miranda lost herself along the way, and she is another Ghost of Christmas, future. Like, this could be you.
She's Marley in this one.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. She's like, this will be you. Like, you will be on your third husband and not get to spend enough time with your kids and be vilified in the media. And
I don't know. The kids seem terrible though.
Oh,
we only see them the one time, but they don't seem like pleasant people.
Oh, they're horrible. Yeah.
But is chicken egg? I mean, which came first?
Right. Yeah. Would it even? And that's it. Yeah. Would it have even been possible for her to raise good, nice kids?
Yeah. I don't.
With the sacrifices that she made.
Yes. I feel like this is one of the episodes where we need a guest. We need someone who, I don't know, knows more about wealthy people or what it's like to live in New York City or to work in publishing or fashion or something. Because I feel like we are completely ill-equipped to analyze some of these.
And we are delving deeper into this movie than I think anyone intends you to delve into this movie.
We do that every single time.
That is a weakness of mine, but
yeah. So. But, folks, we would love to know what you think. Are you perhaps the New York dwelling, fashionable publishing person who can answer all of our questions about what's realistic?
Yeah.
Do you think that Nate's a bad boyfriend? Did you like the Chanel boots? I kind of didn't. I feel like they looked like they'd be hard to walk in. But we would love to know what you think. You can drop us a line. We're at Twitter and Facebook and Gmail. Our handle is the same for all three. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can send us email at that address at gmail.com, or you can DM us on Twitter and Facebook. Or on Twitter and Facebook, you can check out our feeds where we have posts to the newest episodes and sometimes, little fun stuff related to movies that we've watched. We have new episodes every other Wednesday most of the time. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode right there on the page, except in the month of April when we have a new episode every week. So 4 episodes this month. If you're not really a social media person, that's fine. You can find us on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. You can also ask your Amazon smart speaker. You can say, Alexa, play the latest episode of You Show Me Yours, and it'll do that, as we've found.
Yes.
But when you're at any of these podcast providers, we would love it if you would rate, review, subscribe, follow, whatever the parlance is. If you subscribe, follow, whatever, you'll get the latest episodes right in your queue. You won't have to search for us. And if you rate and review, it helps other people learn about us and helps us move up the charts. As we mentioned earlier, this is after the first date month. And so we are talking about movies that came out after our first date in 2003. Next week, Dave is hosting. And what will we be watching next week, Dave?
It's going to be, what was it? Oh yeah. It's going to be The Prestige. That's right. I almost forgot for a second there. What was my second movie? One of my favorite movies. I think it's over time, it's probably moved its way into like my top 5 all-time favorite movies. Definitely my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I would, before Interstellar, I would have said by far my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I like a lot of his work. But The Prestige. That's, one of my top 5 all-time movies. So you're gonna finally see it and hopefully enjoy it.
Good. I feel like I may have been. I've read. I always blame BuzzFeed listicles for anything that I know about a movie that you show me because they always get discussed there. So I feel like I once knew some things about this, but I don't know much. So
I hope you don't know what the plot.
All right,
because that will suck.
We'll find out if I do. But Yeah. All right, then. We'll see you next time with The Prestige. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and something. Is it talks about?
Yes.
Okay.
What else would it be?
I don't know.
Discusses. Sorry.